what all the world's a-seeking. Is it happiness? Is it love? Is it fortune? Well, that is the title of the book that we have here by Ralph Waldo Trine. And within its pages, we may get to find out how to achieve these things that the world is a-seeking. I am Daisy, your hostess, and if you're new to my channel, welcome, and to our community here, welcome back. Please know that from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you stopping by. I noticed that we do have a lot of traffic here. It is very endearing when you do hit that like button, and I love reading your comments. And of course, joy fills my heart with each new subscriber. It encourages me onward, and in a way, we both lift each other up. If you've been following along on the previous chapter, there were so many golden nuggets. I mean, when the author stated that the more of our lives we give to others, the fuller and the richer and the greater, the grander and more beautiful and more happy our own lives become. Even you can look back at your life and you can see that the times that you were giving, the times that you gave of yourself, those were the times that probably were the most happiest and fulfilling. And as the author mentioned, one beautiful feature of this principle of love and service is that this phase of one's personality or our nature can be cultivated. We can focus on developing ourselves to be kinder, to be gentler, to be giving. So another thing that I picked up was that whenever you do a certain thing in a certain way, it's easier to do the same thing the next time and the next time and the next time until it becomes part of a habit. So we can cultivate good habits, and these good habits actually replace old and unnecessary quirky bad habits. This is the way of nature. This is the way that habits are created. Another one of these wonderful principles that he shared was that of justice and the law of compensation. He stated that for every service there must be, in some form or another, an adequate service in return. I'm sure that some of you that are self-employed or have your own businesses, every now and then it goes into your heart that you want to give something away for free, something away for nothing. And as the author mentioned, some people just will not appreciate it and then begin to expect what you're giving away for free as that it is their right to receive for free. So I do agree with this author that generally speaking, the greatest forms of service we can render anyone are along the lines of teaching them the great laws of their own being, the great laws of their true possibilities and their inner powers, and so the great laws of self-help. There were so many more principles that we can apply that can help us do what? Get what we are all seeking. And all of that can be found in chapter 3. So please, if you haven't done so, jump over to my book playlist and grab all those previous chapters. If you are ready, let's turn the page to chapter 4, The Awakening. If you'd live a religion that's noble, that's godlike and true, a religion the grandest that men or that angels can, then live the truth of the brother who taught you. It's love to God, service, and love to the fellow man. Social problems are to be among the greatest problems of the generation, just moving on to the stage of action. They, above all others, will claim the attention of mankind, so they are already claiming it across the waters, even as at home. The attitude of the two classes toward each other, or the separation of the classes, will be by far the chief problem of them all. Already it is imperatively demanding a solution. Gradually, as the years have passed, this separation has been going on, but never so rapidly as of late. Each has come to regard the other as an enemy, with no interest in common, but rather that what is for the interest of the one must necessarily be to the detriment of the other. The great masses of the people, the working classes, those who as much, if not more, than many others ought to be there, are not in our churches today. They already feel that they are not wanted there, and that the church even is getting to be their enemy. There must be a reason for this, for it is impossible to have an effect without a preceding cause. It is indeed time to waken up to these facts and conditions, for they must be squarely met. A solution is imperatively demanded, and the sooner it comes, the better. For if allowed to continue thus, all will come back to be paid for, intensified 1,000-fold, to be paid for even by the innocent ones. Let this great principle of service, helpfulness, love, and self-devotion to the interest of one's fellow man be made the fundamental principle of all lives, and see how simplified these great and all-important questions will become. They will almost solve themselves. It is the man all for self, so small and so detestable that he can't get beyond his own selfish interest, that has done more to bring about this state of affairs than all other causes combined. Remove the cause, and then note the results. For many years it has been a teaching, even of political economy, that an employer buys his help just as he buys his raw material or any other commodity. And this done, he is in no way responsible for the welfare of those he employs. In fact, the time isn't so far distant when the employed were herded together as animals and were treated very much as such. But, thanks be to God, a better and a brighter day is dawning. Even the employer is beginning to see that practical ethics or true Christianity in business cannot and must not be divorced. That the man he employs, instead of being a mere animal whose services he buys, is after all his fellow man and his brother, and demands a treatment as such. And that when he fails to recognize this truth, a righteous God steps in, demanding a penalty for its violation. He is recognizing the fact that whatsoever is for the well-being of the one he employs, that whatever privileges he is enabled to enjoy that will tend to grow and develop his physical, his mental, and his moral life, that will give him an agreeable home and pleasant family relations, that whatever influences tend to elevate him and to make his life more happy are a direct gain, even from a financial standpoint for himself, by its increasing for him the efficiency of the man's labor. It is already recognized as a fact that the employer who interests himself in these things, other things being equal, is the most successful. Thus the old and the false are breaking away before the right and the true, as all inevitably must sooner or later, and the divinity of the working man is being more and more recognized. In the very remote history of the race, there was one who, violating a great law, having wronged a brother, asked, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Knowing that he was, he nevertheless deceitfully put the question in this way in his desire, if possible, to avoid the responsibility. Many employers, in their selfishness and greed for gain, are asked the same question in the same way. They have thought they could thus defeat the sure and eternal laws of a just ruler, but have thereby deceived themselves the more. These, more than any others, have to a great degree brought about the present state of affairs in the industrial and social world. Just as soon as the employer recognizes the falsity of these old teachings and practices, and the fact that he cannot buy his employees' services the same as he buys his raw material, with no further responsibility, but that the two are on vastly different planes, that his employee is his fellow man and his brother, and that he is his brother's keeper, and will be held responsible as such, that it is to his own highest interest, as well as to the highest interest of those he employs and to society in general, to recognize this, and just as soon as he who is employed fully appreciates his opportunities and makes the highest use of all, and in turn takes an active personal interest in all that pertains to his employer's welfare, just that soon will a solution of this great question come forth, and no sooner. It is not so much a question of legislation as of education and right doing, thus a dealing with the individual, and so a prevention and a cure, not merely a suppression and a regulation, which is always sure to fail, for in a case of right or wrong, no question is ever settled rightly. The individual dealing with the individual is necessarily at the bottom of all true social progress. There can't be anything worthy the name without it. The truth will at once be recognized by all that the good of the whole depends upon the good of each, and the good of each makes the good of the whole. Attend then to the individual, and the whole will take care of itself. Let each individual work in harmony with every other, and harmony will pervade the whole. The old theory of competition, that in order to have great advancement, great progress, we must have great competition to induce it, as false as it is savage and detrimental in its nature. We are just reaching that point where the larger men and women are beginning to see its falsity. They are recognizing the fact that not competition, but cooperation, reciprocity is the true power to climb, not by attempting to drag, to keep down one's fellows, but by aiding them, and being in turn aided by them, thus combining and so multiplying the power of all instead of wasting in large part one against the other. And grant that a portion do succeed in rising, while the other portion remain in the lower condition. It is of but little value so far as their own peace and welfare are concerned, for they can never be what they would be were all up together. A member of the great civil body, and no member, let alone the entire body, can be perfectly well, perfectly at ease, when any other part is in disease. No one part of the community, no one part of the nation can stand alone. All are dependent, interdependent. This is the uniform teaching of history from the remotest times in the past right through to the present. A most admirable illustration of this fact, if indeed the word's admirable can be used in connection with a matter so deplorable, was the unparalleled labor trouble we had in our great western city but 3 summers ago. The wise man is he who learns from experiences of this terrific nature. No, not until this all-powerful principle is fully recognized and is built upon so thoroughly that the brotherhood principle, the principle of oneness, can enter in, and each one recognizes the fact that his own interests and welfare depend upon the interests, the welfare of each, and therefore of all, that each is but a part of the one great whole, and each one stands shoulder to shoulder in the advance forward, can we hope for any true solution of the great social problems before us, for any permanent elevation of the standard in our national life and welfare. This same principle is the solution, and the only true solution of the charities question, as indeed the whole world during the last dozen years or so, and during this time only, is beginning to see. And the splendid and efficient work of the organized charities in all our large cities, as of the Eberfeld system in Germany, is attesting the truth of this. Almost numberless methods have been tried during the past, but all have most successfully failed, and many have greatly increased the wretched condition of matters and of those it was designed to help. During this length of time only have these all-important questions been dealt with in a true, scientific, Christ-like, common-sense way. It has been found even here that nothing can take the place of the personal and friendly influences of life built upon this principle of service. The question of aiding the poor and needy has passed through 3 distinct phases of development in the world's history. In early times it was each one for himself and the devil take the hindmost. From the time of the Christ and up to the last dozen years or so, it has been help others. Now it is help others to help themselves. The wealthy society lady going down Fifth Avenue in New York, or Michigan Avenue in Chicago, or Charles Street in Baltimore, or Commonwealth Avenue in Boston, who flings a coin to one asking alms, is not the one who is doing a true act of charity. But on the other hand, she may be doing the one she thus gives to, and to society in general, much more harm than good, as is many times the case. It is but a very cheap way of buying ease for her sympathetic nature or her sense of duty. Never let the word charity, which always includes the elements of interested service, true helpfulness, kindliness, and love, be debased by making it a synonym of mere giving, which may mean the flinging of a quarter in scorn or for show. Recognizing the great truth that the best and only way to help another is to help him to help himself, and that the neglected classes need not so much alms as friends. The organized charities, with their several branches in different parts of the city, have their staffs of friendly visitors, almost all voluntary, and from some of the best homes in the land. Then when a case of need comes to the notice of the society, one of these goes to the person or family as a friend to investigate, to find what circumstances have brought about these conditions, and if found worthy of aid, present needs are supplied. An effort is made to secure work, and every effort is made to put them on their feet again, that self-respect may be regained, that hope may enter in. For there is scarcely anything that tends to make one lose his self-respect so quickly and so completely as to be compelled, or of his own accord, to ask for alms. It is thus many times that a new life is entered upon, brightness and hope taking the place of darkness and despair. This is not the only call the friendly visitor makes, but he or she becomes a true friend, and makes regular visits as such. If by this method the one seeking charity is found to be an impostor, as is frequently the case, proper means of exposure are resorted to, that his or her progress in this course may be stopped. The organizations are thus doing a most valuable work, and one that will become more and more valuable as they are enabled to become better organized. The greatest need today being more with the true spirit to act as visiting friends. It is this same great principle that has given birth to our college and university settlements and our neighborhood guilds, which are so rapidly increasing and which are destined to do a great and efficient work. Here a small colony of young women, many from our best homes, and the ablest graduates of our best colleges, and young men, many of them the ablest graduates of our best universities, take up their abode in the poorest parts of our large cities to try by their personal influence and personal contact to raise the surrounding life to a higher plane. It is in these ways that the poor and the unfortunate are dealt with directly. Thus the classes mingle, thus that sentimentalism which may do, and which has done, harm to these great problems, and by which the people it is designed to help may be hindered rather than helped, is done away with. Thus true aid and service are rendered, and the needly are really helped. The one whose life is built upon this principle will not take up work of this kind as a fad or because it is fashionable, but because it is right, true, Christ-like. The truly great and noble never fear thus to mingle with those poorer and less fortunate. It is only those who would like to be counted as great, but who are too small to be so recognized, and who, therefore, always thinking of self, put forth every effort to appear so. There is no surer test than this. Very truly has it been said that the greatest thing a man can do for God is to be kind to some of his other children. All children of the same Father, therefore, all brothers, sisters. Man is next to God. Man is God incarnate or made visible. Humanity, therefore, cannot be very far from being next to godliness. Many people there are who are greatly concerned about serving God, as they term it. Their idea is to build great edifices with costly ornaments to Him. A great deal of their time is spent in singing songs and hallelujahs to Him, just as if He needed or wanted these for Himself, forgetting that He is far above being benefited by anything that we can say or do, forgetting that He doesn't want these, when for lack of them some of His children are starving for bread to eat or are dying for the bread of life. Can you conceive of a God who is worthy of love and service? And I speak most reverently, who under such conditions would take a satisfaction in these things? I confess I am not able to. I can conceive of no way in which I can serve God other than as I serve Him through my own life and through the lives on my fellow man. I believe that this is the only kind of service He needs or wants, or that is acceptable to Him. At one place we read, quote, "He that says he loves God and loves not his fellow man is a liar, and the truth is not in him." End quote. Even in religion, I think we shall find that there is nothing greater or more important than this great principle of service, helpfulness, kindliness, and love. Is not Christianity, you ask, greater or more important? Why, bless you, is this any other than Christianity? Is Christianity any other than this? At least if we take what the Master Teacher Himself has said. For what, let us ask, is a Christian? the real, not merely a name. A follower of Christ, one who does as he did, one who lives as he lived. And again, who was Christ? He that healed the sick, clothed the naked, bounded up the brokenhearted, sustained and encouraged the weak, the faltering, befriended and aided the poor, the needy, condemned the proud and the selfish, taught the people to live nobly, truly, grandly, to live in their higher, diviner selves, that the greatest among them should be their servant, and that his followers were those who lived as he lived. He spent all his time in the service of humanity. He gave his whole life in this way. He it was who went about doing good. Is it your desire then to be numbered among his followers, to bear that blessed name, the name Christian? Then sit at his feet and learn of him, love him, do as he did, as he taught you to do, live as he lived, as he taught you to live, and you are a Christian, and not unless you do. True Christianity can be found in no other way. It makes no difference what one may call himself, for many call themselves by this name, to whom Christ says it will one day be said, quote, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye cursed. End quote. It makes no difference what creeds one may subscribe to, what rites and ceremonies he may observe, how low and how numerous his professions may be. All of these are but as a vain mockery, unless he is a Christian. And to be a Christian is, as we have found, to be a follower of Christ, to do as he did, to live as he lived. Then live the Christ life. Live so as to become at one with God, and dwell continually in this blessed atonement, at one-ment. The trouble all along has been that so many have mistaken the mere person of the Christ, the mere physical Jesus, for his life, his spirit, his teachings, and have succeeded in getting no further than this as yet, except in cases here and there. Now and then a rare soul rises up, one with great power, great inspiration, and we wonder at his great power, his great inspiration, why it is. When we look deeply enough, however, we will find that one great fact will answer the question every time. It is living the life that brings the power. He is living the Christ life, not merely standing afar off and looking at it, admiring it, and saying, yes, I believe, and ending it there. In other words, he has found the kingdom of heaven. He has found that it is not a place, but a condition. And the song continually arising from his heart is, there is joy, only joy. The Master, you remember, said, quote, seek ye not for the kingdom of heaven in tabernacles or in houses made with hands. Know ye not that the kingdom of heaven is within you? End quote. He told in plain words where and how to find it. He then told how to find all other things when he said, quote, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these other things shall be added unto you. End quote. Now, do you wonder at his power, his inspiration, his abundance of all things? The trouble with so many is that they act as if they do not believe what the Master said. They do not take him at his word. They say one thing, they do another. Their acts give the lie to their words. Instead of taking him at his word and living as if they had faith in him, they prefer to follow a series of old, outgrown, man-made theories, traditions, forms, ceremonies, and seem to be satisfied with the results. No. To be a Christian is to live the Christ life, the life of him who went about doing good, the life of him who came not to be ministered unto, but to minister. You will find that this mighty principle of love and service is the greatest to live by in this life, and also one of the gates whereby love and service is the greatest to live by in this life, and also one of the gates whereby all who would must enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, we have the Master's words in his own and only description of the last judgment, after speaking of the Son of Man coming in all his glory and all the holy angels with him, of his sitting on the throne, of his glory with all nations gathered before him, of the separation of this gathered multitude into two parts, the one on his right, the other on his left, he says, quote, "Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in, naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me." Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee and hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Then shall he say unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, for I was an hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in, sick and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. End quote. After spending the greater portion of his life in many distant climes in a fruitless endeavor to find the cup of the Holy Grail, thinking that thereby he was doing the greatest service he could for God, Sir Launfal at last returns an old man, gray-haired and bent. He finds that his castle is occupied by others, and that he himself is an outcast. His cloak is torn, and instead of the charger in gilded trappings he was mounted upon when, as a young man, he started out with great hopes and ambitions, he is afoot and leaning on a staff. While sitting there and meditating, he is met by the same poor and needy leper he passed the morning he started, the one who in his need asked for aid, and to whom he had flung a coin in scorn, as he hurried on in his eager desire to be in the Master's service. But matters are changed now, and he is a wiser man. Again the poor leper says, quote, For Christ's sweet sake, I beg an alms. End quote. The happy camels may reach the spring, but Sir Launfal sees only the gruesome thing, the leper, lank as the rain-blanched bone, that cowers beside him, a thing as lone, and white as the ice isles of northern seas, in the desolate horror of his disease. And Sir Launfal said, I behold in thee an image of him who died on the tree. Thou also hast had thy crown of thorns. Thy also hast had the world's buffets and scorns, and to thy life were not denied the wounds in the hands and feet and side. Mild Mary's Son, acknowledge me. Behold, through him I give to thee. Then the soul of the leper stood up in his eyes, and looked at Sir Launfal, and straightway he remembered in what a haughtier guise he had flung an alms to leprosy, when he girt his young life up in gilded mail, and set forth in search of the Holy Grail. The heart within him was ashes and dust. He parted in twain his single crust. He broke the ice on the streamlet's brink, and gave the leper to eat and drink. 'Twas a mouldy crust of coarse brown bread, 'twas water out of a wooden bowl, yet with fine wheaten bread was the leper fed, and 'twas red wine he drank with his thirsty soul. As Sir Launfal mused with a downcast face, a light shone around about the place. The leper no longer crouched at his side, but stood before him glorified, shining and tall and fair and straight, as the pillar that stood by the beautiful gate, himself the gate whereby men can enter the temple of God in man. And the voice that was calmer than silence said, Lo, it is I, be not afraid. In many climes without avail, thou hast spent thy life for the Holy Grail. Behold, it is here, this cup which thou didst fill at the streamlet for me but now. This crust is my body broken for thee, this water his blood that died on a tree. The Holy Supper is kept indeed in whatso we share with another's need. not what we give, but what we share. For the gift without the giver it bare. Who gives himself with his alms feeds through himself, his hungering neighbor and me. Footnote. According to the mythology of the romancers, the Sangreal, or Holy Grail, was the cup out of which Jesus partook of the Last Supper with his disciples. It was brought into England by Joseph of Arimathea and remained there, an object of pilgrimage and adoration, for many years in the keeping of his lineal descendants. It was incumbent upon those who had charge of it to be chaste in thought, word, and deed, but one of the keepers having broken this condition, the Holy Grail disappeared. From that time it was a favorite enterprise of the knights of Sir Arthur's court to go in search of it. James Russell Lowell. The fear is sometimes entertained, and the question is sometimes asked, may not adherence to this principle of helpfulness and service become more sentimentalism? Or still more, may it not be the means of lessening another's sense of self-dependence, and thus may not at times do more harm than good? In reply, let it be said, if the love which impels it be a selfish love, or weak sentimentalism, or an effort at show, or devoid of good common sense, then yes, many times. But if it be a strong, genuine, unselfish love, then no, never. For if my love for my fellow man be true love, I can never do anything that will be to his or anyone else's detriment, nothing that will not rebound to his highest ultimate welfare. Should he, for example, come and ask of me a particular favor, and were it clear to me that granting it would not be for his highest good ultimately, then love at once resolves itself into duty and compels me to forbear. A true, genuine, unselfish love for one's fellow man will never prompt, and much less permit, anything that will not result in his highest ultimate welfare. Adherence, therefore, to this great principle in its truest sense, instead of being a weak sentimentalism, is, we shall find, of all practical things, the most intensely practical. And a word here in regard to the test of true love and service, in distinction from its semblance for show or for vainglory. The test of the true is this, that it goes about and does its good work. It never says anything about it, but lets others do the saying. It not only says nothing about it, but more, it has no desire to have it known. And the truer it is, the greater the desire to have it unknown, save to God and its own true self. In other words, it is not sicklied over with a semi-insane desire for notoriety or vainglory, and hence never weakens itself nor harasses anyone else by lengthy recitals of its good deeds. It is not the professional good-doing. It is simply living its natural life, open-minded, open-hearted, doing each day what its hands find to do, and in this finding its own true life and joy. In this way, it unintentionally but irresistibly draws to itself a praise, the rarest and divinest I know of the praise I heard given but a day or two ago to one who is living simply his own natural life, without any conscious effort at anything else. The praise contained in the words, and oh, it is beautiful, the great amount of good he does and of which the world never hears. End of chapter. All right, my dear one. Leave me your comment, let me know you were here, and head over to the next video where I will be there with Chapter 5.